Hello, this video is talking about cycles. So we've been talking about moon cycles, we've been talking about life cycles, we've been talking about I Ching cycles, so many different things in the 3P Club. And we wanted to hone in specifically on the moon cycles and how they relate to the menstrual cycles. It's a question that comes up a lot with people I do Living with Flow coaching with. But the obstacle is people are looking for a one-size-fits-all answer, which I don't believe in. And people are looking for, tell me what to do. And it's not that simple. What the different cycles give us are different layers of energy, different layers of being, but they're not so closely tied to this is what you should do. Now, I do have a list somewhere of the things to do in the different phases. What I believe is more empowering is to equip people, you, to look at the cycle and work out where you are and what's best going to serve you in that moment. Because it's not just, oh, look, it's a full moon, or oh, look, I'm in ovulation, or oh, look, it's a new moon and I'm in deep luteal. There's far more nuances to it. So it depends on many cycles, which we're going to look at. The first thing that I want to point out, though, is that the cycles are so similar. It doesn't matter whether we're looking at life cycles or more, I don't know what the word is, more up there cycles. So moon cycles, sun cycles, more static cycles. I think that's the word I'm looking for. They all play a part. So I'm going to start looking at this through the life cycles. And you can see there, I've got 3 on the screen. This is from a YouTube video from Elementary Science School Review. And I'll make sure the links to all of these videos are below this video on YouTube. This one was a very simple one, just outlining that most life cycles have a lot of similarities. So the life cycle of a frog is very much the same as the life cycle of a plant, is very much the same as the life cycle of, I think it's a ladybug they've got there, but also the butterfly they talked about. So there's a lot of similarities. There's also a lot of similarities between the hibernation cycle. And so I'm just going to pull that up. So the hibernation cycle, we've got, this comes from, it was a graphic that I Googled and it came up in Google and there's the link to it. But again, we've got this cycle that follows the same kind of patterning. So all of the cycles follow similar patterning. We can see it in this life cycle of plants. There's a seed, there's the planting, there's the germination, the sprouting, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to talk that through. You can read that, fortunately, because I clearly can't. But it's the same when we look at the sun cycle. The sun rises, the sun sets, and it goes around. And you can see there, this follows, do you know about the moon phases? We can get to the moon phases. It's a weird comment on that slide. Clearly, I didn't edit it yet. But you can see it follows the same kind of cycle as the plant cycle. So we've got the seed, we've got the planting, the germination, the sprouting, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the plant with fruit, it falls down, it becomes the seed and it reduces. We can see this with the sun. It rises, it gets brighter, and then it reduces. We can also see this with the moon. We've got the darkness, it gets slightly bigger, 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 brighter, full moon, and then it starts to decrease again. So it doesn't matter which cycles we're looking at, there's this consistency of a starting point, a growth point, a peak, and then a decrease back to that starting point. We can see it in the life cycle of the plants. We start with the tiny seed, it grows and grows and grows until it's at its peak. And then it doesn't show it very well on this graph, but we got the plant with the fruit. The fruit then decomposes and decompresses and comes back to the seed, exactly the same as the moon phases. Excuse me. We can also see this with the seasons. So again, we've got the same format here, the same 8 points. We've got winter, then it actually gets a little bit colder, then it starts to get warmer again, the warmest, the peak of summer, the summer solstice, which is actually where it gets the hottest. So in trying to work out which hemisphere I'm in the southern hemisphere, February is our hottest month, whereas summer starts in December. There'll be the flip of that for the northern hemispheres. Then we have autumn, the autumn equitherm, and then the winter solstice. And so what we're seeing here is this move through cold and dark to warm and bright. And again, it's this same low to high. It's this same transition. And there's points. So winter solstice is the shortest day. Summer solstice is the longest day. They're polar opposites. And there's points in the middle at that equilibrium. We see this even more clearly on the moon chart. If it'll click. We've got dark versus light, but the third quarter and the first quarter, just other than them being on opposite sides, they're about the same. I find it very hard to look at the moon and work out whether we're in the first quarter or the third quarter, because I can never remember which way round they are. I have to work out whether we're between the new moon and the full moon or between the full moon and the new moon. But it's exactly the same in the seasons. And this is what I'm saying. The cycles are just so overlapping. So what I encourage people that are trying to learn to track and navigate through menstrual cycles or moon cycles or whatever it is, to step outside and look bigger and look to this overarching. And the moon cycles are a really easy space to see it. This overarching, there's almost nothing. We're at the beginning, where it's seed, we're at germination. And then we move through, it grows and grows till we're at full bloom, full power, full extreme, and then it's going to wane again. And this is the same with any of our goals. My problem with my goals, in full transparency right now, is that I get to about here and then I completely disengage. I don't bother completing. I don't do this end bit. I just walk away and leave it, and they stay in this incomplete stage. Now, the other one, so we've got, if we look at this, we've got the day, the month, the year, and one of the newest cycles that I've been introduced to, and I will acknowledge that I haven't played with this too much yet, but this is the decade. This is the sun cycle. So every 11 years or so, because it's not as nicely and static, the sun poles flip. And they can monitor this through, and this image doesn't show it particularly well. This image doesn't show it particularly well, but it moves from very little sun activity at this end. So you can see these have fewer little solar spots on them than these ones do. So we start with little sun activity, and I imagine there should be like 2009 sitting here to show this level of inactivity. And then it gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and then it peaks, the poles flip, and then it starts to get more dull and goes back. And again, it's doing this in this 11-year-ish cycle. So we've got day, month, year, decade, but they're all following the same pattern. And our menstrual cycles do the same. So this image is taken from Stasha Washburn, who is my mentor in this space, her period coaching piece. And it moves through menstrual, follicular, ovulation. But again, you've got this cycle. So we've got in deep luteal, early menstrual, and I'll pull up my other graphic I'll pull up my other graphic now. Deep luteal menstrual is our winter. We're treating, we're coming back into ourselves. Then we move into follicular, it's starting to bloom, our energy is starting to come up. We hit ovulation, which is the peak of our energy, moving into summer. Luteal, which Stasha sometimes calls late summer or autumn, depending on which way she's looking at it. She had menstrual more in the winter. For me, menstrual is really that transition out of winter and into spring. Every woman is going to have their own, which is why there's no one size fits all. Every woman is going to have their own experience of this and their own way of tapping into this. But you can see here with this layer, with the layers, we've got the sun in the middle, rising to setting. We've got the moon following the same pattern. We've got the seasons following the same pattern. And our menstrual cycle follows the same pattern as well. Whichever pattern you are more familiar with, that's the one I invite you to play with. So if you're more familiar with the changing in seasons and you know winter is hibernation, if we look at the hibernation one, winter is fasting and weight loss. And then we come back into spring and we go out and we fatten ourselves back up again. And then we get to summer and we're at our peak, we're fat, and then we transition back into fasting and we navigate through. Or if we look at, I think this is actually squirrels, but I look at harvesting. So you go out, you gather all of the food, you plant. In autumn, we're harvesting. In winter, we're using up our reserves. And then in spring, we're coming back out. There's new nuts, there's new flowers, there's new seeds for us to gather. Through summer, we've got plenty. There's an abundance. There's animals that are fattened that we can catch and we can eat. And then we come back to autumn, we do our final harvest, we gather everything, we put it into storage, and through winter, we allow ourselves to replenish. You can see us doing that through our menstrual cycles. Through menstrual, we're dreaming big, we're working out what we want to do, we're taking action, building up connections, planting things through follicular, making sure everything's in place so that when we hit ovulation and we're in our peak energy, we can record videos, we can go out, we can do webinars, we can do big events in our peak energy. Through luteal, we're gathering everything back together, we're tying up loose ends, we're pulling it all together and combining things again, coming back down into deep luteal, where we allowing ourselves to take what we've done and it be enough so that we can retreat in luteal and we can just live off our reserves, and we can then come back out in menstrual, re-envision, replay. But what you do when is going to depend on your energy styles, on your natural personality, and how you're going to leverage it. There's also, and I wish I had my farmer client on to answer this for me, but I'm sure there's like some crops that are planted off season and different ways of doing it. So often he's going home for harvest in like November, which is obviously off harvest to where we think about harvesting in autumn. So there's going to be things that are going to be off season, and that's okay as well. And that's again why there's no one size fits all. But in a nutshell, we've got these different phases, but they align. I was going to go back to the moons and talk through them, but I'm not. I'm just going to stay on this one because I really want you to see how they overlap and how the energies overlap. So it doesn't matter which one we're in, whether we're in the midnight of the sun cycle, the new moon, the winter, or the deep luteal, we're really in that introverted take care of ourselves. And we could talk through all of them. I'm not going to do that right now. I trust that gives you a great introduction. I'm really looking forward to unpacking this in the Elite 3P Club membership. For those that want to watch those conversations and access more of the behind the scenes stuff, soon there will be a link, depending on when you're watching this video. If you're watching it in the early days, there won't be the link there yet. There will be a link to an online membership platform for you to join, to watch those conversations. And like I said, the club where we're having those conversations, they are my elite VIP clients. So if you want to know how to be part of that and become one of my elite VIP clients, where we look at living with flow, we look at doing business in a smart and productive way, and we look at how to connect with your own internal inspiration guides, then let me know, and I look forward to having that conversation with you. All right, bye for now.